So we need our conscious minds, and in a state of relaxation for the purposes of hypnotherapy treatment, it is okay, to be aware that you are nothing more than relaxed. That's all that's required, a reasonable level of relaxation, and hopefully relaxed enough. And this is why some of the relaxation techniques to induce what we call hypnosis is often used to cite that trance is being induced, but it's only the wording that's used to induce the state of relaxation. The person themselves may be the sort of personality that goes on to accept that they are under the influence or under the power of. That's not the power that the other person has over you. That's the power that you're giving to them. Yeah, they're not taking it, you're giving it. And that particular analogy is very important when it comes to us dealing with the system, because that is more often than not just what we do. And yeah, I'm guilty of it as well. I had my own encounter not that long ago, November-ish last year, I think, and that's exactly what I did in the end. I gave them a bit of a run, but ultimately I did just that. However, older and wiser, and hopefully with me sharing these little accounts, you are too. And the ones that are already wise beyond that point, get on the flaming radio. Let's hear about it. Okay, right, where am I in this very carefully choreographed schedule I'm running here? Yes. This next soundbite I'm going to play for you is actually from one of two comedians that you'll come across a lot researching the kind of stuff that most of us do. This chap's actually Bill Hicks, and I've got a couple of my favourite sayings of his just lined up ready to play for you. And the other guy, George Carlin. Is it George Carlin? Yeah, Carlin and Hicks. If anyone out there hasn't heard of either, or both for that matter, go check out Bill Hicks and George Carlin on YouTube. Both comedians, but let's just say aware, quite aware, and they're no longer with us, unfortunately. Bill Hicks, I think, died in 1994. Born 1961, died 1994. But he had a lot to say before he went, some of which I'm just about to play you. But on an interesting note, which may well be known to a lot of you guys, but wasn't to me until recently. I mentioned Bill and Ted earlier. The movie, well, actually two movies, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and another similar sounding one. Anyway, the character in that kind of comes back from the future to inform Bill and Ted that they're these rock gods in the future. I think the character's name was Rufus. Well, that guy is actually George Carlin, the very comedian that has a lot to say. I mean, my particular favourite snippet from George Carlin would be when he's actually being interviewed live on some American news show type thing, and the programmed presenter takes issue with some of the statements he's making, and basically says to George, look, we're living in a modern society, in one of the most advanced cultures on the planet. We've got freedom of choice. What's your problem? Where George Carlin promptly points out that freedom of choice might be 17 different varieties of bagel, yeah, but when it came down to the real choices that matter, you could count them on one one hand, and sometimes just one or two digits. So definitely well worth a listen to. Anyway, here's my first soundbite from
young man on acid realize that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There's no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather.
Okay, I'll stop that there. I mean, you know, you're probably aware of the other part I'm going to play anyway, but yeah, just a nice little bit of subject matter there to bring me on to my next point, my next little snippet for you. One of the authors I'll frequently quote, a guy called Robert Anton Wilson, and you know, if you look into his stuff, he has produced some I guess controversial stuff. Certainly in the years he actually brought these various books out, and I certainly haven't read all of his books by any means. My favourite book of his I can't quote you from because I happen to lend it out to someone who as of yet hasn't returned it, but said individual wants me round tomorrow to sort out their heating, so I'll make sure that I've got that for next week's show, otherwise he won't be getting his heating fixed. Anyway, this particular book I'm reading from, let me just read you one of the quotes another author has given about this book. It goes, reading this book is like swallowing a hand grenade coated with LSD. It will either expand your mind or blow it to kingdom come. And you know, this author really does, you know, if you follow his story, Irish guy by the way, although he spent most of his life in America, where he died just a couple of 3 years ago or something. But he recounts a couple of brilliant stories about living in Ireland and let's say experimenting with some substances, and the resulting dramas that occurred. But you know, his drug usage aside, this man had an extremely profound ability to grasp the functioning of the mind in regards to reality, and he's the one, you know, I mean, my most used quote of Robert Anton Wilson's is, "The map is not the territory." That's the shortest and quickest way to get the overall meaning across. The map is not the territory. But he recounts in this particular book a tale, well, not so much a tale, another account of an explorer that I'm sure you're all familiar with by the name of Marco Polo. When Marco returned to Europe after his epic journey across Asia to China, he brought with him, well, initially he brought with him the three products that seemed to define the modern world, which was at the time gunpowder, paper and spaghetti. But he also brought back with him some very interesting stories, and one of the most bizarre concerned a chap called Hassan I. Sabah. And yes, I know quite a few of you out there, although I'm not looking at the chat room at the moment, will be well ahead of me on this one. I happen to know not everybody is, so just bear with me and enjoy hearing the story again. Anyway, Hassan I. Sabah, the founder of the Order of Assassins, In Arabic, incidentally, the word means under the influence of hashish. Anyway, ruled from this mysterious fortress called Alamat in the high peaks of Afghanistan. Topical, eh? And by all accounts, Hassan was born in the middle of the 11th century and was quite a remarkable man even in his younger years. At college, he'd impressed just about everyone with his intelligence, and while still a student, he struck up a friendship with a character known as Omar Khayyam. I wonder if that's any relation to Victor, who ended up buying the company, if memory serves. But this Omar Khayyam went on to become an astronomer and poet of great note. Hassan went into the government and rose to an important position, but he was disgraced and forced to flee. Now, evidently because of strong evidence that he'd been embezzling funds. But one account of the time, which was not from one of his sympathetic peers, but it states flatly that it was basically a frame-up by other government officials jealous of his rapid rise. And after that event, he embarked on a series of journeys, and they led him all over the Middle East, and he eventually sailed from Palestine to Egypt, and he arrived in Cairo in 1078, and he enrolled in one of Islam's most famous colleges, a school of mental spiritual training run by the Ismailian sect, and they were generally regarded as heretical and were often persecuted by more orthodox Muslims. But the knowledge that Hassan gained there probably played a very important role in his subsequent career. For it seems that he became 900 years before Dr. Timothy Leary, a skillful programmer of other people's drug trips, especially erotic trips. The Ismailian sect at that time had 9 degrees through which the candidate for wisdom had to pass, and details on all of them aren't available, but those facts that are known indicate that at one stage the candidate was induced to grovel in utter gullibility, believing everything his imam, which means teacher, told him. And at a later stage he was led to, this is the initiate, led to suspect that everything the imam said was a flat lie. And there was also a stage at which the Quran was explained as an allegory, and Allah himself, supreme God of all, was described as a mere symbol of the awakened or illuminated human mind at its peak of development. I'm not going to go off on tangents here, but I'll continue. This method of training, in which the students forced into absolute subjugation and infantile dependence on the teacher at various intervals, but is finally catapulted into total self-realization and independence. It's not unlike that used in yoga, in Zen Buddhism, and even by the American Indian Brujos. Walking Turtle might correct me on that pronunciation, but behind it's a notion that a slave is a man waiting for someone else to free him. Yeah. The subject must eventually issue his own declaration of independence, and until he does, the teacher makes his slavery as miserable as possible, so as to encourage that act of creative rebellion. Now, to my mind, sovereignty, although it's more of a realization before you can start fully living as a sovereign. That's a very good parallel to my way of thinking.